I did grow up in a very small apartment, 2-room apartment, without an own room. And it was very difficult to find out a quiet place. And I learned reading when I was very young, with the fingers in my ears, concentrated to the books, and I read everything I could get. Adventure stories, very early Dostoevsky without understanding anything, but fascinated by the book. And if I remember well, I think that was the most concentrating reading I ever had in my life when I was a boy. And then I couldn't stop it. It was going on, and also the writing.
Nacido en 1927, el novelista alemán Günter Grass obtuvo renombre internacional con su novela El tambor de hojalata, publicada en 1959. En ella Grass ve la trágica historia de Alemania a través de la mirada cómica de un niño que se niega a crecer, Oskar Maserat. Este enanito voluntario se hace presente tocando un ruidoso tambor de hojalata. Pero hojalata en alemán no solo es un metal. Hojalata también significa basura. Y la medida de la importancia de Grass es que al acabar la guerra, él y su generación se encontraron con una lengua corrompida por los años de la dictadura nazi que se apropió por completo del discurso público. La grandeza de Günter Grass ha consistido, ante todo, en devolverle verdad, belleza e imaginación a su propia lengua y enseguida en decirles a sus compatriotas las cosas que no quieren oír. Mr. Grass, do you remember what was the beginning of that feeling of yours to tell the people, don't forget what has happened? How old were you when you knew you had to tell the people not to forget?
It was a tin drum. The tin drum was the beginning, yes. Then I was 25, 26. And before I wrote mostly poetry, in the beginning, as every writer, very influenced and very epigonic. And when I changed from Düsseldorf, from West Germany, to Berlin in 1953, and this was the reason I changed the place. I was in a city divided, without the wall, but divided. Two different political systems really concentrated. That was really the Cold War city, Berlin in this time. The city was in 1953 still destroyed, empty places. That means I was confronted to the reality. And this was also a change in my writing. The first poems came to paper of my first volume of poetry. This was published in 1956. And with this first step, looking to reality, I was able to write my first novel. And this was, there are many reasons to write a novel. But one reason was to show that the period of Nazism in Germany was no mystery. This didn't happen in night time. It was going on slowly, on daytime. Everybody was able to know what is happening. And I tried to describe it. Also how it worked in the lower classes, in the petit bourgeois class and in the workers' class, how they changed their political mind from left positions, from no interest to politics, up to the fascism, to the Nazism. This was the beginning.
The Tin Drum, The Rat, Dog Years were
but
three of your novels.
I forgot to say something, because in a question and answer play like this, you always give one answer. And now I explained very naked the political reasons, but there was another thing. After the war, there was kind of a thesis that the German language was destroyed by Nazism. And sure, it was hard damaged. But the writers of my generation, and me too, we thought it's not possible to punish the language, because there was a period of Nazism. The German language is much older. And it's a strong language, and it's a weak language, and it's a hard language, and it's a beautiful language. We have to use it. We cannot say we have now to play the piano only with one hand. Now we have to use both hands and the feet too. And this I tried first time in the Tin Drum, going back to the tradition of Roman literature in Baroque times, a very rich period. Looking back to also the immigration literature, perhaps. My master in writing was Alfred Döblin with Berlin Alexanderplatz, a marvelous novel. I learned first. I had teachers. And this and with also with this political trying to open the mind, to look back, this together was the basis for the Tin Drum.
The Tin Drum, Cat and Mouse, and Dog Years are your novels which take place in Danzig, your hometown. How were those days of yours in Danzig?
In my youth time, Danzig was up to 1939, when the war started, a free city. It was a result of the First World War, Versailles. It was surrounded by Poland on one side and from Germany, from East Prussia from the other side. Free city that was protected by the Völkerbund, but always in danger. And because the same development we had in Germany was a little bit later and more slow in Danzig too. The growing up of the Nazi party, the street fights between communists and social democrats on one side against the Nazis, and then terribly enough, after the decision of the communists to fight first the social democrats, also between the communists and the social democrats. This was the background of my youth time. The other background was a city on the Baltic Sea, a city full of history, of the Hanseatic time, of the Middle Age, these Gothic cathedrals in dark red bricks you have around the Baltic Sea, all over in Sweden, Denmark and Germany, up to the Balticum, to Riga and other cities. this background of a middle-aged old city with all this history, with this open-minded tradesmen were relation from the Hansa time to London, to Brussels, to Brugge, to Novgorod, or all this large room. I think before we became nations in Europe, we were much more Europeans. There was no nationalism at all. There was no national thinking. It was this kind of economic relation of the Hansa time. From my point of view, it's much more modern than we have than our trying today to take Europe in an economic thing together. And this was the other background of my youth time, and then this city and my hometown was lost. Became Polish after the war. The German people, also my parents, were forced to leave the city. It was very hard for them. In Germany were about 10 million refugees, displaced persons from eastern parts of Germany, from other parts. And but I decided very quick by me, this is lost. And the Western world is on the way to lose this victory. Because they thought first, we are the winners of the Cold War. And they are losing because they are without any idea. Their only idea, they think it is an idea, is economic. But I have the feeling also that the capitalistic world is no more able to remember their first targets. It was not only to make business, it was also, capitalism is like socialism. There are two ideas of the European period of enlightenment. They are very young ideas. From the 18th century, slowly. And they always belonged together in a fight, in a connection, capitalism and socialism. And now, after the collapse of communism, what's another thing than socialism. Socialism is an old European idea, still existing in the western part, and a very strong and democratic movement. And now the capitalistic world has the feeling we are the winners, and now we are the only. We are ruling everything, but they aren't able to do it. You see that the world is in a terrible misorder. Every day, you can say, a new little war is starting, becoming a bigger war, sleeping a while, coming again. The background is that without an idea, a modern idea of our world in a bad condition, by several reasons, also ecologic reasons, we need a constructive, modern, democratic idea. But I don't see it. I don't see it because the capitalistic world is only interested to make, in a very short way, a lot of money. And this is destroying the own structure of capitalism. That means that the capitalistic world is on the same way that the communistic world was before. Believing in their own propaganda lies, they destroy their own system. And what will be the result? That is, we see it in Yugoslavia, we see it in Georgia, on the Caucasus region, we see it all over in the world. That the so-called third world is just beside. If there's no oil, there's no interest to be involved there. And we have more and more civil wars, and the worldwide fundamentalism is growing in Russia, in the Islamic world, also in the Catholic world, in Eastern Europe, in Poland perhaps. And this is a terrible mixture, mixed up also with a kind of a renaissance of fascism. Not in the same way we had, but mixed up with in Russia perhaps with Stalinism and fascism and clericalism together. Things a real fall back to the 19th century. And this is not a very good outlook.
What are human beings searching for?
I can't say it generally. I've traveled in Asia and traveled in other countries, and I saw and recognize with respect that there are other cultures with other understanding also about democracy. And we have to stop our democracy, to force other people to make the same democracy we think we have. Perhaps we have it, but also our democracy in Germany is in danger by himself. There's no reason that we are going around and teaching other people in Asia or South America what's a good way to become a democrat.
So democracy.
But I think the idea of people is to live in peace in a small unit, together with other small units, and they are, in this little things are beginning the difficulties. What we can try to accept and also to show to other people, we had this period in Europe of enlightenment, and the first thing in the early period was to tolerate each other. I think this tolerance should be the basis of living together.
So we have to learn how to live together.
Yeah.
We haven't learned in centuries.
No, and we haven't learned, and now the movement is back. The movement is back to the 19th century, to a second-hand nationalism, and that means that it will be much more difficult to teach and to learn tolerance.
Why is it too hard to love each other?
It's not necessary to love each other, but to tolerate. If you ask for love, you also always ask for hate. That belongs together. Love is marvelous sometimes, but I prefer just tolerance. Perhaps I don't like the kind of kitchen these people have, or how they behave, and what they believe. But I like to tolerate them, and I hope that they tolerate me, also if they don't like my kitchen and my behavior and what I believe or don't believe. And that's not necessary that we love each other.
It's old-fashioned.
No, that's a relation between perhaps two persons or many persons, and we know by experience how difficult it is to keep love on fire. And I say, if you always teach people, say you have to love each other, you are teaching also the backside of love, that's hate. And I want something, perhaps it's a little bit boring, to live beside love and hate. Tolerance is not very dramatic. But if we really want to go on this planet in danger, we have to tolerate the nature. That means that we have to do a lot of things to change the pollution, to change the pollution of the atmosphere. That means that when I say tolerance, that's not only the tolerance between people, that's also the tolerance to nature.
Is literature power as well?
On a long distance, yes. Going back again to this marvelous and strange period of enlightenment in Europe. The time of Voltaire in France, the time of Lessing in Germany. Most of these books were stopped by the censorship. But literature had a long breeze. Years later, many years later, the books came again. Changed mind. Our thinking is influenced still by this period. In a bad way, in a good way. And that, from this understanding, literature and the word has a power. A power in a good way also, and in a bad way. And sometimes, and mostly mixed up. It's very difficult to find out.
Will Germany become at last part of the European community as a whole?
This is the hope. And this is also the difficult thing, because I thought from 1989 it would be much better for Germany and also for Europe to go slow, to start with a confederation of the two states and then change to a Bund Deutscher Länder. That means not a larger Bundesrepublik, to make a new constitution and to understand Germany by the cultural background of this country. Germany was quite different than France in the 17, 18, after the 30 Years' War, divided in more than 350 little, more larger and states. And still we have the Bundesländer, Bavaria perhaps, and North Rhine-Westphalia, Westphalia. They are quite different. The same is between Württemberg, Baden in the southwest, and Saxonia on the other side, or Saxonia and Mecklenburg in the east, northeast. They have other dialects, they have other cultural backgrounds, they have, from time to time, they have another history. Perhaps a city like Dresden in Saxonia was much more, in former times, orientated to Prague and Vienna and Krakow in Poland than to Berlin, the next great city, because Berlin, that was Prussia, that was danger. A lot of wars between Saxonia and Prussia happened. The Saxonians were the first victims in every war the Prussians had against Austria. And we have to recognize this history, and I think it would be much better for Germany to exist with 8 or 9 states connected together, working together, much better to the Germans and much better for our neighbors than to concentrate 80 million Germans, as we had it before in the 19th century, only on the background of 3 wars. Bismarck was able and possible to unify Germany by force, with a terrible result, with the First World War and going on up to the collapse of Germany in 1945. And we have to remember that before Bismarck came to power and became successful in this unification way, there were other ideas of Germany, to live together in plurality, in the plurality of different cultures and also different understanding of Germany. And we forgot about this other possibility of Germany when we got the possibility of unification. And if we think about Europe, coming back to your question, we have to remember this. There will be much more relationship, perhaps, between Baden-Württemberg and the southwest of Germany and Elsass-Lothringen, the east part of France and a part of Switzerland. This is economically and from the culture background a part of Europe without frontiers. And the same, as I told you before, is with Saxonia and the Czech and the Slovaks and the Polish people. There's an old relationship. The king of Saxonia was for years the king of Poland too. A terrible king, but a king of both. And there's still this if you see Dresden was terribly destroyed, but if you see the architecture of Dresden, it's quite different than Berlin. That's much more in connection with this Middle European culture of Prague, Vienna, Budapest, and Dresden.
What is your next book?
A larger novel, an epic one. But I don't like to speak about acts who are not on the net.
You're right. Mr. Grass, thank you very much for your time.
As I thank you, and I hope that my poor English was able to
It was excellent.
Understand.
It was excellent. Desde Berendorf, Alemania, Silvia Lemus.